Okay,
See?
perfect. Got it.
It comes on.
Yeah. Here we are at the Kern Antelope Historical Society, the Ice Cream Social, and it's October 10th. Way to go! Our guest speaker is Gretchen Whitford, and she's going to be speaking.
Is there light pollution coming in right now
Yeah.
from the outside?
We can see okay. We can see the
It's
tree.
bright.
Close the door. This is not a very big room, and I thought my school teacher voice would be fine, and it would be one less piece of equipment that we had to haul in. So we don't have our loudspeakers. Is everybody okay? Yes. Good, okay. I am mic'd, but that's for the benefit of the camera. So, welcome everyone. The lights are
Right above the door. Good job, Shorty.
We have, or some of you have heard this before, or parts of it before, because when I went back and looked at my computer, I have about 4 different versions of Ezra Hamilton and Willow Springs. Sometimes the emphasis was on Willow Springs, sometimes it was just on Ezra Hamilton, and I sort of tried to merge this. It's appropriate, I think, to talk about Ezra Hamilton in this building that he built. And it, you know, he was an incredibly interesting human being. I wish I had known him and could have talked to him because he was quite a character. He was born in 1833, and he passed away in 1914. I actually, in all the readings that I did on Ezra, I found some discrepancies, but I do have in the paperwork that the Historical Society has, I have a copy of his obituary. And so I do believe that that is the correct date. He was born in Illinois, and at the age of 1920, he got on a wagon train and came west. Now, one other document that I read talked a little bit about him when he was a teenager working on the Mississippi River. Apparently he was an energetic human being. But anyway, he got on this wagon train coming west to the gold fields in Shasta County. That was his destination. And I'm putting information because I am aware in my old age that I'm not keeping stuff up here, so I actually need to see it. And I know some of you are visual learners, so hopefully you're okay with me putting information up there because it helps me remember. He, in 1855, after he had been mining and learning how to placer mine, because that's what they did in Shasta County. They didn't do the kind of mining we have here, as some of you learned at our last meeting, that was placer mining up there in Shasta County. he apparently had met a lady that took his eye on the trip out. And of course, this was months, to get out here from Illinois. And so he went to Oregon to see her. Well, this was during the time when there was a lot of unrest between the indigenous people that were in the Rogue River area and the settlers and the army, and so there actually was a war that they had. It was called the Rogue River War, and he got right in the middle of that as he was going to see his lady friend. After that Rogue River War, he went back to Shasta County again to do some mining. And one little article I read said that he didn't want to marry this gal until he had enough money to support her in a style that he felt was appropriate. Well, she, I guess, got tired of waiting because she got married to someone else. So he joined the Union Army, went back across country, and we're talking about, this is not something that happens quickly like it does nowadays. He went back across country and was in the Union Army for 2 years. Now, one little piece that I read said that he was actually at the surrender of Lee, but I found no other any other information to collaborate with that. So I don't know. But at the end of the Civil War, he went to Minnesota, and he married a gal, Harriet Moffett, who was the daughter of a judge. And this was in 1867. In 1875, he's back in California. And he is in the pottery business. Now, he didn't just make pots. He made pipe. He made tiles, bricks, anything you can make out of clay. That's the business that he had in Los Angeles. And Los Angeles was really growing, so there was a huge demand for specifically clay pipe. I assume both for water and for sewer. He and Harriet had 4 sons: Fred, Truman, and there's a street that you drove on named after Truman, Eugene, and Lester. Apparently, Ezra was very, very civic-minded, because he served on, I assume this is sort of like the LA, they call it the Common Council. I don't know, it would be the town council, or he served on that for 3 years, 3 different years. He was active in a couple of political parties, but not the common ones. One of them was called the People's Party. He ran for LA County Supervisor. Did not win, but he ran. So he was certainly politically active. His pottery business moved from where it had been over to East LA, and apparently he had an 8-acre piece of ground in East LA. And because of all the pipe that they were making, they needed a certain kind of clay. You can't take a clay pot and sit it in water and have it maintain its integrity. So you needed to have some specific chemicals in the clay so that when it was fired, it became sort of porcelain-like, and therefore you could have water passing through it without the pipe deteriorating. And so Ezra advertised in all the local newspapers. There was clay down where he had his business, but it really wasn't what he needed. So he advertised in all the local newspapers. One local newspaper was read by someone who lived in Rosamond, a Dr. Crandall. And Dr. Crandall sent Ezra a sample of his clay, and lo and behold, it was exactly what Ezra was looking for. So Ezra ordered a train car load of clay. Now by this time, we did have train service out of Rosamond. Probably about 1878, 76, 1870, or 1879, long about there, they finished the tracks. So there was train service from Rosamond to LA. So a train load of clay was shipped from a hill that was owned by Mr. Crandall. So now we are in the Antelope Valley for a little bit. This is the hill, which all of you have seen if you come down Mojave Tropical Road. Do you recognize it? Yep. And you'll see that a big chunk of clay has been removed from this hill. Well, this was exactly what Ezra needed. And so the first thing he did apparently was he staked a claim that you had to, just like for mining gold, you had to stake a claim to mine clay. And then he eventually bought the hill. Now the reason that I have two dates is I think one of the dates, the 1882, is when he staked his claim. But I picked up in one of the things I read that he bought the hill in 1882. I read in another thing that he bought the hill in 1885. And I'm kind of thinking that somehow they got kind of smushed together. He staked his claim, and then a few years later, he bought the hill from Dr. Crandall. Now this hill is what we know as Tropico. This is the back side, the north side. Well, things were going along just fine for a while until in the 1890s, there was kind of a downturn in the economy. And things slowed down in Los Angeles. They were not building, they were not needing as many of these clay pipes. And Ezra, because he had been a miner, he knew about how to pan. So he took some of his clay, I guess one day, and he panned it. And lo and behold, he found a tail of gold, kind of like the one that we saw last time that Terry had shown us. Aha! In all this clay, there is gold. Well, Ezra, as I said, I wish I had known the man. I have a story that he wrote about how he actually found gold. And he's a storyteller. Nowhere in the story does it mention that he already owned the land that he came up to check out, since he had his business down there kind of going downhill. I mean, he made a wonderful story about taking one of his sons and loading up a horse and wagon and coming up to the Antelope Valley and just sort of finding this place. Well, he already had the plane, but anyway, it's a better story if you make it a little more magical. But he did, with one of his sons, come up and start seriously looking for the source of the gold that he found in the clay. And it took him years. And the son that had come with him said, "I've had enough of this, Dad, I'm leaving." Said, you know, it is really, I think, a 2-year journey that he took. He was in pretty dire straits for a while, but he kept working. And of course, he finally found the source of the gold that was in the clay. And so he, first of all, he staged this, because and this is the picture that you see of Ezra. And it was staged according to his handwriting. He was going to show everybody that, you know, after years and years of trying, he had finally found gold. But this was the lighter one.
You didn't light it, yeah.
Yeah. And so anyway, he developed that. He found gold. But he already bought the hill, so anyway. He did stake several claims, and he even, I think, let other people stake claims on the hill. Okay, so let's talk just a little bit about Willow Springs. Okay, we have Ezra over on Tropico mining, and he was also milling, but his mill was down off of Rosemont Boulevard, I believe. I'm getting okay from Terry. And I have yet to quite find where on Rosemont Boulevard.
We did it fine.
Now,
If you know where to look.
if you know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Anyway, but he was milling because, as you all learned, if you were at our meeting last time, you have to crush up the rock that we have around here and extract the gold chemically. Anyway, he had his eye on land somewhere else. Willow Springs, this area right here, was a reliable source of water for years. I mean, we're talking about way, way back, Native Americans used this as a almost permanent stopping place because there was reliable water. Early explorers, Father Garces was here. You are standing on ground where Father Garces trod. General Fremont came through here. So again, you are standing on ground where we had General Fremont, Kit Carson. I mean, it just goes on and on because this was where you could find reliable water. The water actually came out of the ground and ran. I have some pictures of that too. And of course then it became an important stagecoach. Now this is all before the railroad. So all goods that traveled from Los Angeles into the Central Valley and into points north had to come through Willow Springs. Because this was the main road. So all of the gold from the Cerro Gordo discoveries had to come through here. This is a drawing that was done in I lost my notes. 1876, I believe, by a man who worked at the Willow Springs station. And this is what it looked like back then. There's not much left. There's a tiny bit of it left. But this was where all the stagecoaches came, all of the wagons hauling ore and supplies. This is where they came. And this man worked as a laborer here for, I think, 6 months. I got this article from the Valley Press, this picture. It really wasn't the best place if you had to stay. If you were on a stagecoach, the story is that you often had to share a bed, and sometimes you got to sleep in the barn or someplace wherever you could find. So they didn't have a lot of accommodations. It was not the Hilton. There was a tremendous decline in stage travel because, any ideas? The railroad, yeah, the railroad. The railroad came through Roseman in about 1876, 77, 78. Well, that was the end of the stagecoach. And that really kind of was the end of Willow Springs, in a way, being the place you traveled or you went through on your way anywhere. This is a picture, which I think a lot of you have seen already, of Willow Springs, right here, where you are standing. Or sitting. There's water running here. There's horses over here. There's people standing out here. There's water running down here. And this is the remains of one of the adobe buildings that was part of the old stagecoach station. This is where you are, because actually at this moment, you are sitting in a building that's about here. If you look across the street, down that little driveway, you'll see this building, or pieces of it. They've actually done some rebuilding in order to try to preserve it. So this is what Ezra Hamilton ended up buying. He bought 160 acres from, at that time it belonged to the Beale estate. Now, you know, Beale was given by Abraham Lincoln most of the Tehachapi Mountains and a lot of land that came this way. And this piece of land right here was part of the Beale estate. And Ezra actually bought it from the heirs of the Beale estate. And then he started building. This one has a date on it, which makes it very, very, very nice. And you can actually see part where you are sitting right now. It's this building right here. And as I say, water just poured out of the ground. It's because of the geology of the area. You know, we have rock along here, and there's up above, there's a lot of land to collect water. He has a swimming pool. There are swings. I mean, there are wells that, you know, the water just comes up. This is quite a find, and this is what Ezra wanted to do with this property. He wanted to build a health resort. He wanted to farm. And he also wanted a place to house miners. So he thought, I'll just build myself a community. Or at least that's what it seems like. Here's the building where you are sitting now. It's been modified some because they poured that concrete raised porch there. Here's the door where you came in. It's now a door. The main entrance at that time was here, and the roof had to be replaced. I don't remember. There was a fire, right, Kathy?
Yeah. I don't know what year it was.
But anyway, here is the building. Ezra also, built houses for miners, houses for guests, all built from this dome from the hills. A lot of it came from Tropico, I believe. There's another little interesting thing here. This is the first car that was in the Antelope Valley.
And that was Ezra's car.
That was Ezra's car, yeah. Willow Springs really became a community. We had a grocery store. We had a hotel. We had a post office. In fact, he was postmaster. Anything you wanted. This was a community. And it was a very active community. They had dances here in this building every Saturday. Ezra provided the prizes. You got $5 worth of gold. Well, back then $5 was a lot of money. You got $10 or $20, depending on whatever. It was just really an important community. In addition, and this is on the next slide, this is because I've been forgetting where I am. That's why I knew I needed to put this here. This community had electricity. And this community had an ice house. I mean, people, if they wanted to come, they could come and dance because they had electricity here. In addition to being a very active farming community, Ezra raised grapes, and he raised alfalfa. He raised anything that he needed to make this a totally active community. Now, this building did not have a bar until like 1938, I think is what Richard said in that. It had a stage. And I didn't find anything that I can recall on the back of this picture, but this was taken here in this building. And I don't know if it was a group event, if there had been a play, or if it was a family portrait or whatever. But anyway, it was this building. Ezra's wife Harriet passed away, so this building became the place where Ezra was married again to Elsie. you know, I'm sure that, well, as you can see, this building goes quite a ways that way. So I assume the stage was down at that end. Kathy, I haven't been exploring
There's
around.
some back rooms back there.
I know that at one point in time, this building had some remodeling done internally because it was used as a restaurant. And so I know that there was a kitchen that was built back there, probably in the area where this stage now is.
Yeah, where did you find that seat for shoes?
I have no idea. Elsie's knows. But there were a lot of people around, and as I say, this was the community hub. All over in the valley, they came here. They had electricity. Ezra was an inventor also. He has 6 patents. Clever man. He invented a machine that automatically would pour the clay pipe that they were putting in the ground, and he has a patent for that. He has a couple of other patents, and I can't remember off the top of my head what they are, but he was an interesting man. Of course, farming was important, and this is before cars, because we have mules and wagons, and they did grow a lot of hay. I was told at one time that some of the 20 mule team, when they came to Mojave with the borax, they would come and get hay here and then take it back the other direction to feed the mules. Now, all the activities were not indoors. They had outdoor activities. And Fred Hamilton, this is the oldest of Ezra's sons, said from 1904 to 1906, Willow Springs had the top ranked baseball team in the entire Antelope Valley. Oh, they also had rodeos. They had horseshoe tournaments. Anything that you could do outside, I guess they did. And they had picnics. I love this picture. Here we are at Willow Springs in 1904. And it's 4th of July. And I didn't even know there were this many people in the valley. Now, some of these people are named here. And if you can read, Gerblick, Clarence Gerblick and his father are identified. And Clarence was pretty important in Rosie. And then the little girl that's off here, she is also named in this. It says, little busy girl to the extreme right is Myrtle Gerblick Patterson. You know, there's a Patterson Road in Roseman, and I remember Fred Patterson, who used to live along Patterson Road. But,
I'm sorry, are all those trees in the background?
yep,
Wow.
Cottonwoods looks like, just that's the guess.
There were willows.
Maybe willows. Yeah. Anyway, I mean, this is pretty important place. Okay, Ezra had been involved politically down in the LA area. He became more politically involved here in the Antelope Valley. And this picture that I'm going to show you next is written on it that it's the AV school board. So apparently Ezra Hamilton was on the AV school board. Now, there's a lot of kids in this picture and a lot of women, which I know the women were not on the school board. So I'm assuming that when they went down somewhere to have their school board meetings, the whole family went with them because, you know, you don't travel back then to Lancaster the way you do here. It becomes a day outing. But here's a picture that shows, and it's on the back, it says AV School Board. Ezra Hamilton is the third from the right, and there's also, it also says that it has Fred and Lester, two of his sons. Now I'm not sure which one is which. I know this is Ezra. I think this one and this one look like they're brothers. But that's just me. I don't know what you all think, but I think they look like that they belong to the same family. Yeah. Anyway, I thought, you know, I was July 4th, 1914. His son Fred continued to operate Willow Springs. He continued to grow alfalfa and continued to try to, you know, keep the community going. I was told by Richard just yesterday that Fred actually tried twice to sell the area. And both times he got it back because the person couldn't afford to make the payments. But Fred did continue to operate Willow Springs until 1935. The other brother, Truman, stayed in the area, but he became the constable of the Mojave. In 1935, Edmund Nelson and his two partners purchased Willow Springs. They were going to go into mining Middle Buttes. That's up on 90th Street and Bacchus Road. Those mountains there are called Middle Buttes. And that's where they were going to mine, and they wanted a place to live here. The partners and Mr. Nelson were all associated with the Bank of Italy, which is now the Bank of America. In fact, the house where Kathy lives was partly built by Giannini back in 1935. But eventually, Edmund Nelson bought out his other two partners. And the foundation for the current ownership of Willow Springs, you know, was laid. There's a lot, I'd like to one day investigate the whole Nelson family and all that, but right now nobody really wants me to do that, so. For a later time. But I did want to include some pictures after the Nelson family owned Willow Springs. And here's the swimming pool. And look at all the trees. I don't quite have a date on this, but there is an automobile right there. It looks to me like it's maybe from the 40s. Maybe. So we have a few more. This is the way I remember Willow Springs when I first came in the 60s. And, you know, here's the building where you all are sitting. I did tell you that I would show you the adobe that had been reconstructed. Part of this building is from the original Adobe Stagecoach station, and it's right across the road there. If you look down that alley, you'll see a corner of it. And they went ahead and rebuilt it, I think, in order to save it. They wanted to put a roof on it, and they wanted to save it, because if you just leave it, it'll deteriorate. In 1951, Willow Springs became a national, a registered California historic landmark. And I believe the plaque is right over there by where you guys park. Yeah. And of course today, Willow Springs is sort of, it's active. It sort of is true to Ezra's dream of having a community, because it is like a little community all to itself. And they farm, and they raise grapes, and they raise fruit, and they let us come and use one of their buildings. And that is the end of my presentation. Now I do, if anyone has any questions, I am certainly not an expert. I may reach out to Kathy. Wait a minute. I'm not supposed to take any questions until I turn on the mic that has right there, so let me do that. Okay, so your question should be able to be heard because there's a mic right there.
Okay, can you hear that, ma'am? Can you hear it? Do you want me to get closer? Okay. When they had the picture of the horses coming in from the borax, it looked like there was a row of trees, little tiny trees. Were those little Joshua trees? Were they little almond trees?
They don't look like Joshua's. They look a little like some of the desert kinds of things, but not the native desert kinds of things. Because they look like things you see in a nursery. To me. Any other questions? Yes?
You said that Willow Springs was the main stagecoach stop and everything else because of the water. Do you have any idea what the route was? Did it come down like 395 and cross? And where did they cross this local?
It went from going like over to the Central Valley. I actually have a map, and you can actually see on the map. I have a map from the 1800s. From here, if you went north, it went north and over through Oak Creek and over that way. If you were going the other way, it went up to Mojave and then went out that way. Now, I don't have such a good idea quite going south, but I think it went over into Leona Valley. I think there was a stagecoach stop in Leona Valley. And then it went through some of the canyons into LA that way.
One of the stagecoach routes go through my property.
What's that?
I said one of the stagecoach routes goes through my property.
Oh, okay. Terry said one of the stagecoach routes goes through his property. Okay, so Terry lives off of Bacchus Road. So you would go up that way and then head off this way.
It actually ran into 90th, or this Patrick Wilson Road.
Okay.
But about past my property, there's also Ben showed me a stagecoach stop that was out there in the middle of the desert.
There was a place where they could change horses
Yeah.
or something out there
Yeah.
off of Bacchus Road. We are so spoiled. We drive in vehicles and we're there, and you know, just think about what it was like to go via horseback or via wagon and how long it took. You know, I think, in fact, when Ezra came out, that they didn't use horses, they were using ox. Well, you know, they go even slower than horses, so. Any other?
Was tropical mud once called Great Mountain?
Tropical was called, yeah,
Yeah, I didn't, I read it was called that because your mind was just played.
right, yeah. He asked if it was sometimes called the Red Hill or the Red Mountain, and yes, it was. Because of the color of the rock out there. Yes,
Hey, where's Ezra buried at? Yeah,
I don't remember.
Down below somewhere.
Big
It's
forest
like
line.
a thread.
Yeah, some,
You can find it online.
I
yeah.
was gonna say, yeah, you can find it online, but I don't remember.
I think it's evergreen.
Evergreen, that sounds right.
All right.
That sounds right. It's interesting when you read about Ezra, because there's things that don't always agree. And I don't know how much of this came from the fact that Ezra was a storyteller. He did write his own memoir, and it actually exists in California State Library. It's 824 handwritten pages. But knowing Ezra the way, just from a little bit that I've read, he's a storyteller. So is it all factual? Well, maybe not. Any other questions? Well, we owe,
Is there any family that he, any descendants that still live in the Antelope Valley?
I don't believe so, but Richard just told me that some of the Hamilton kids of kids were just by visiting. Richard stays in touch with the Hamilton family relatives. And I don't remember whose kids they were. Yes.
Google's wonderful.
Okay. Doreen has Googled. So
Evergreen Cemetery in Los Angeles alongside his wife Harriet.
okay, he's buried in Evergreen Cemetery in Los Angeles alongside his wife Harriet. Not Elsie, but Harriet, the father of the boys, the 4 boys. Yes, Google is wonderful. Any other questions? I'm kind of, not wanting you guys to be here too long because the ground outside is uneven and it gets dark quick, and I don't want anybody, meeting the ground unexpectedly. So anyway, thank you all for coming. Oh, wait a minute. Got to talk about next meetings. The next 2 meetings. Okay. Our next meeting, Janet, you want to talk about our speaker?
I'm going to tell a little bit about it. Trudy, Lady was her name back then, and we went to school together, and she lived just over that way a little bit. And her father, the whole family raised turkeys. There were 5 girls, and they all had to get out there and work a lot of the time, I guess. And she's going to come and talk at our next meeting along with 2 of her sisters, 2 younger ones. And they're going to talk about what it was like. And back in those days, there were poultry farms everywhere, turkeys and chickens. The barns were all over. You'd see the chickens and the turkeys out. They were just everywhere. And it was evidently a good place to raise them, moderate weather and stuff. So she's going to talk about that and what it was like working on a turkey farm. And she said even a little about how that affected them for their later lives, what probably skills they learned or values or something. So it should be really great. She's a lot of fun. So it'll be, she lives down below, down towards Temecula now. So, but they're coming up.
When I first came here in '62 as a teacher, one of her older sisters was one of the only other single people in Roseman. And so I would come out and visit the Upleys, and I got to see the turkeys and it was an experience. And they lived on Hamilton Road. You know why Hamilton Road is called Hamilton Road?
Supposedly, I think the house that she was in, I think she used to say that was had been built by Ezra Hamilton, but I'm not, or, I don't know, but it was, and the kids were always going around, there was supposed to be some gold buried there, treasure, that was probably just rumor. But they were always trying to find little places where there could be something buried, and you know, golf ball bouncing on the sidewalk out in front and stuff.
Okay, so that's next meeting, and we will be back in the library in Roseland. The December meeting is our traditional dinner meeting, and we are all set up to be, okay, I don't know what the name of that restaurant is. Diamond Jim's. Okay, we'll be at Diamond Jim's, which is the restaurant that's attached to the casino.
On Avenue A.
Yeah, on Avenue A. But remember, Avenue A is still torn up, so you have to get to 20th Street. You have to get to it like 20th Street. I think we could do this for like $30 a person, which is what we did last year. That's what our goal is. So at our November meeting, we will need commitments from you all and for the dinner. Is there anything else I have forgotten?
Well, they might want to be remembering, we usually have a raffle for raising funds, so if they want to save money to buy something or to donate something.
Okay, yes, we are looking for donations, and we will always have a raffle because it helps us, because it's going to cost us a little bit more than the $30, I think, when you take in account all the passes and tips and things. So we want to try to make it a little to cover those expenses. Anything else I have forgotten? Okay, well, again, thank you.